Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are doing the top 4 races that Republicans need to focus on if they want 2023 to be a successful year for them. I know, they literally flopped in the last week for the Wisconsin Supreme Court races and the Chicago mayoral election. They failed to get their moderate Paul Vallesen, and they failed to win the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and now the liberals have control of the court, sadly enough for them. But it's not over. There's still a lot of elections in 2023 that can make this year better for them, even though they failed to keep the Wisconsin Supreme Court. These elections will still prove important for them, and I'm going to today go over the top elections that I believe they need to focus on if they want it to be successful for them. So essentially, this is a Republican's guide to how to be successful in 2023. Anyway, the first race that we will be looking at, this is number 4. We are counting down. So 4 is the least important, 1 is the most important. And in my opinion, number 4 is the state of Louisiana, where we will be having a governor election, where the incumbent governor is term limited, actually. The incumbent governor is a Democrat. And look, I would not put this race at all on my list if if there was already a Republican governor. Because why really bother when... I mean, why? Why bother even caring about this race if there's a Republican governor that's running for re-election? But there's not. This is the Republicans' chance to flip a governorship, and they can't mess it up, which is why I'm putting this on the list, because it is important for them that they do not mess this up. This will be, assuming that they pull this off, and I think they will, this will be one of the main highlights of this year for Republicans. So the current incumbent governor is John Bel Edwards. He's a Democrat, a very, very conservative Democrat, actually. And he is term limited. He cannot run again. And there are very few Democrats that can actually replace this guy. We have Danny Cole. He's a pastor. Don't know a thing about this man. Look up Danny Cole and see if you've come up with any results of this guy. I bet you won't. Then there's Shawn Wilson. This guy is essentially the front runner for the Democrats. He's got the name recognition. The party is essentially going to back him like fully. And yeah, he is the former secretary of the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development. Shawn Wilson is not statewide elected. I believe John Bel Edwards appointed him to the position, and I think he just resigned it, actually, because he wanted to focus on his gubernatorial campaign, I think. I'm not totally sure about that. I don't think any of these other Democrats, by the way, are going to run. Gary Smith Jr. might run. He's just a state senator, though, not a statewide official, so I don't really think the party's going to care much about him. LaToya Cantrell, she might get some endorsements if she ran, but I don't think she's running. I think she's just a name that people throw out there, but I don't really think there's any reason to think she's going to run. Mitch Landrieu, no, that's wishful thinking. Sharon Weston Broome, Mayor Baton Rouge, again, these are just names people throw out there. I don't think they're actually going to run. So it's really Shawn Wilson. Shawn Wilson is not that conservative. He's really not got the crossover appeal that John Bel Edwards has. Sure, he's from Edwards' administration, which means at least he has recognition from there. But again, there is really not any reason why this guy should win. He's essentially a generic Democrat through and through. So, Republicans have already kind of united behind somebody, which makes their prospects for this race look pretty good. They have united behind Jeff Landry, the Louisiana Attorney General. There are other, of course, Republican candidates that have declared. There is Sharon Hewitt, the majority leader of the Louisiana Senate. She probably doesn't have the name recognition because, I mean, look at people like me. I'm into politics and I don't even know who the majority leader of the Indiana Senate is because that's where I live. I don't know that. So I don't think she's going to have very much support at all. Xan John, nobody cares about that guy. Jeff Landry, he is the front runner. Richard Nelson, state representative, nobody knows who he is. He's just one state representative out of Lord knows how many. John Schroeder's really the only other guy who I could actually see potentially threatening to Jeff Landry. But again, Jeff Landry has the endorsement of the Republican Party. He's essentially got everybody backing him in the state. And so I think in the end, Jeff Landry is really and truly the candidate that is going to be able to defeat Shawn Wilson. The question is this race going to go to a runoff or not? I can talk about that when we get to the time. For right now, I would say that it actually very well might not. The primary is October 14, and assuming Jeff Landry still has the base coalesced around him, assuming that John Schroeder doesn't start to surge in the polling, because currently he's at 3%. Despite being a statewide elected official, John Schroeder literally has only 3% of people saying that they would back him. Whereas Jeff Landry has like somewhere in the 20s with like 20-something undecided. So I could actually see this race barely not going to run off, which would be very good news for the Republicans. So that being said, that is the fourth race, the fourth most important race that I think Republicans should focus on if they want 2023 to be a good year. Now, number 3 is a race that I don't think anybody's ever going to talk about. I truly don't believe it. But it's the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court race. After the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, yes, I know. Republicans struggle in races like this. They do. Ever since Roe v. Wade, it's just difficult. However, Republicans have won statewide races before in Pennsylvania in the Supreme Court. Now, that being said, the only time they did that was in 2021, I believe, and that was during the Red Wave, where Glenn Youngkin managed to win the Virginia governorship, and Jack Ciattarelli almost won the New Jersey governorship. So they have been able to win statewide Supreme Court office before in Pennsylvania. But there's only one of them. Only one Republican is on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. There are 7 seats. 5 of them are held by Democrats. One of them is a judge that was appointed by a Democrat after the death of Chief Justice Max Baer, who died, and this is why we're having this race to begin with. And then there's the one Republican. So essentially it's a 6-1 Democrat majority. Now, the Democratic primary, it literally does not matter who they put up. They are favored to win in this race. I will say it right out. They are favored to win in this race. Wisconsin Supreme Court would have been a lot closer had we not had Daniel Kelly, but that just goes to show what happens when you put up Daniel Kelly. So anyway, the Republican primary, on the other hand, is going to be important because we need to see who the best candidate is. In my personal opinion, the best candidate is the one that the Pennsylvania Republican Party has endorsed. That would be Carolyn Carluccio. She is the judge of the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. She has been there for around 14 years. And she is from a blue county. Let's actually check out how Montgomery did in the 2020 election. But yeah, she is from a blue county, Carluccio is. And so that very well could factor in. She would have, while she was not elected, by the way, to Her, yeah, 62 to 36 for Trump in Montgomery County. So Carluccio is from a very Democratic county, and despite being a Republican, she was not elected there, but having name recognition there and that being her home county, she is absolutely the best choice Republicans could put up. Patricia McCullough, she's the other one running. She made an argument against an argument against. I know that's confusing. She made an argument against an argument against an abortion bill that said there's no right to an abortion. So I was reading this article where Tom Wolf and Acting Secretary of State Lily Chapman went against a anti-abortion bill that was passed by the Pennsylvania State Senate and House. These two were actually against this bill, and the judge pinpointed threshold issues, so it was essentially against their argument for why this bill is a bad idea. So in other words, she's essentially anti-abortion. And so that will be an issue if you want to win statewide in a Supreme Court race. Now, I think Republicans could actually pull off a win in this race if we have something like 2021. 2021 was an incredibly good year for Republicans in general. They did a great job during that year. They came very close to almost winning New Jersey. I mean, what the heck? And so if this year ends up being another 2021, with the exception, of course, of Wisconsin Supreme Court, then we actually could see this seat flip into Republican hands. But right now, I would say Democrats are favored to win this race by a decent amount, probably a likely margin, but Carolyn Carluccio, definitely the best candidate to be able to pull off the win. Now, that's the unexpected one. That's the one that nobody thought I would ever bring up. The second most important race is the Mississippi governor race, and the only reason I bring up this race is because Brandon Presley is such a good candidate. This guy has won, I think he's won like in a Trump plus 30 township or something. Like, he has good crossover appeal, this guy. Now, let's not forget, Tate Reeves did defeat Jim Hood in 2019. Jim Hood was, of course, the only statewide elected Democrat, a conservative Democrat. He, not necessarily extremely popular, but of course, being statewide elected and a Democrat in a red state, he did have crossover appeal just like Presley does. Reeves defeated him by 5 points. I expect Reeves to defeat Presley by about the same amount. However, Republicans cannot get complacent about this race. Presley is an electoral god in some ways, where he has won elections. And so he's pretty much the presumptive nominee. The polling even shows that he could potentially pull off an upset in some of these polls, although most of them have Tate Reeves winning. Tate Reeves also is not that unpopular, but he does have issues. There are corruption issues. There is the issue with I think the water crisis was kind of an issue. So those are probably going to be key issues during this campaign. And so essentially Republicans cannot get complacent about this race. This is an important race to focus on. If they want 2023 to be a good year, before they start trying to flip other races, they need to focus on the races that they already have that are competitive. And so that is why this race is mainly important, because, of course, Brandon Presley is a strong candidate. Tate Reeves, not exactly the strongest incumbent governor you could come up with, even though his approval is still above water. I've seen polls that show him at like a 48 to 42 approval. So he has a decent approval rating, or a mediocre approval rating, but not an especially great approval rating. And so that is why I think this race Republicans do need to focus on, just to make sure that Presley does not get anywhere near the governor's mansion. Okay, the final race we're going to look at is in Kentucky. This is the most important race of the year, guys. Apart from Wisconsin Supreme Court, this is the most important race of the year. Daniel Cameron can win this race. It is possible. But what he needs to do is focus on how liberal Beshear is. Beshear is not moderate, guys. People have pointed this out. Beshear is not very moderate. He's kind of, when it comes to guns, he kind of is. But, nah. Not really. Not really, guys. Yeah. He is essentially a generic liberal when it comes to most issues. He vetoed the transgender bill, for example. That's very important in a state like Kentucky, because Kentucky has vastly more conservatives than it does have liberals. So Daniel Cameron could very well run on the issue of this transgender bill being vetoed and use it to show how liberal Andy Beshear is, and potentially win. I was discussing this on a stream the other night, and I think it is very, very possible that Republicans are able to win this race. However, Beshear is an incredibly popular governor, and it's going to be hard to defeat a governor with an approval of around 60. I mean, that's pretty darn good for a red state. So, and that explains why these polls all show Andy Beshear up against most candidates. The candidate who I think is going to be the nominee is Daniel Cameron. I think he has the best shot. He's endorsed by Trump, so he's probably going to end up winning the primary anyway. But even without Trump's endorsement, he still has the name recognition, so it does not matter. But yeah, this race is incredibly important for Republicans if they want to regain a Southern governorship. And so they have to be able to focus on the issues that voters care about and not just run a generic campaign with no real energy against an incredibly popular governor, because otherwise they are going to lose. They have to focus on an issue that people care about, like Glenn Youngkin did in Virginia, because if they don't do that, they're going to lose. So anyway, that is my top 4 races that I believe Republicans need to focus on in 2023 if they want it to be considered a successful year for them. Comment down below, like down below, subscribe, do all those things, and I will see you next time. Bye.